Planet Coaster 1 was a generational game. It gave us the tools to unleash our creativity, and for me, it set me down the path of making content. Something I've never done before, and I never really expected to do. Even with the bugs and the jank, we had fun. We built parks, we built coasters, and as a community, we shared content that, I like to think, pushed the game further than anyone ever expected. But what about Planet Coaster 2? How is that now? In order to figure that out, we'll have to just start playing, right? We have to build a park from scratch. But before we get ahead of ourselves, we need to ask the real question. Where does every park begin?
Oh yeah!
Outside of the park entrance, I like to think it begins with a story. And I like to think that every park has a story. Even the plain and generic ones, because let's be honest, plain and generic parks have their own charm. Beige walls, mediocre food, and at least one ride that hasn't worked since opening day. But this story begins with nothing more than grass, dirt, and a big idea. Behind me lies a blank digital canvas. Well, not really behind me, kind of in front of me, but you get it. It's a field of green pixels that will soon transform into the grand entrance of our brand new theme park. Our digital guests will arrive here with their digital friends and digital families, all to experience their very first taste of digital adventure. Welcome to the beginning of our story. Hey everyone, CommandoSanta here, and welcome to the beginning of our new park. In today's episode, the capstone episode, the beginning episode, we're laying the foundation, the entrance plaza, the first shops, and the heartbeat of what will eventually be a living, breathing, an AI, staff mismanaging, occasionally bugged out theme park, but it'll be our theme park. We built it. I'd like to welcome you all to Everpine, a brand new theme park settled in the northeastern United States area. I think we have placed maybe 3 pine trees in this entire park so far. But hey, there's a lot of room for more pine trees. So, as I explained earlier, we start with the entrance building. The entrance building being the focal point, the most important part of the park, in my opinion, outside of the rides and such, of course. But I mean, this is what everyone sees. Every single person that comes to this park has to walk through these gates, whether they're going in or they're out. So I think this was probably the perfect spot to start, and this is what I've kind of accomplished. I didn't really do a recording of the time lapse of building this because, I'll be honest, it took me, a few weeks of building this out. Wasn't really sure what I was going to do, how I was going to do it. I built many things, deleted many things, and just kept going back and back. And I didn't want to have gigabyte after gigabyte of recorded video on my hard drive just to not use it. So I really wanted to be kind of intently recording what we're going to be showing off. So I think further episodes might be a little bit different, but at least for this one, I just wanted to set the stage the right way with what I intend to show off and how I intend to build it out. So turning the field into something a little bit different. One of the things I wanted to focus on building this out was, of course, on top of realism, a lot more of like elevation changes. I think that's something that I would like to kind of play around with a lot more with this game because I think they make things a little bit easier in terms of elevation and the terraforming, especially with how the path tool works now. The path tool definitely works a lot differently than Planet Coaster 1, but I think it, once you get used to it, which it took me a couple weeks to get used to, you can do a lot with it. You can do It's very versatile. You can do a lot of like very precise things that you probably couldn't do with the original path tool in Planet Coaster 1. But I think they also include the legacy version in case you really are missing out on Planet Coaster 1's path tool, which is pretty neat. But anyways, I guess let's get into showing off what we've built so far. So being that this is the entrance of our new park, This is kind of just like the main thoroughfare entrance into it. To the left here, I've started what I feel like is going to be probably accessible parking. I'm going to probably need to grab some assets of like vehicles just to get scale and size right, so I can start placing down like parking indicators and painting the lines for the handicap parking and accessible parking. But outside of that, you just keep moving. That's kind of something we'll tackle later. But being that this is the entrance to the park, I think starting off with group sales, these two little outbuildings that kind of are set a little bit forward. I've modeled this heavily off of a theme park that's very, very near and dear to my heart, very close to me. Was Six Flags, was not Six Flags, became Six Flags again. Darien Lake up here in western New York State. This is probably very familiar to many of you who have gone there before. But group sales being, buying your tickets with your friends, your families before you head into the park, go to the entrance. They kind of set it up a little bit more to the front so you can buy the stuff before you get to the entrance. Nothing really too crazy and exciting about that. I custom built the roofs because they didn't really have a roof that was working the way I wanted it to. So I really kind of wanted like more new metal looking roof lines with like ridges on it, which I thought was pretty neat, and I think I got what I wanted. I played around with the gutters. I really like the gutters, and all the gutters, in my understanding, would kind of have a drainage system underneath, the pavement here that would kind of drain out to the ditch that I built, that I dug over here. Because of course, one of the most important things to consider as building your new theme park is water drainage. Water drainage is very important. But before we get to the main building, over here to the right, kind of more of an administrative building, pass office. So where you go this is where you'd get your season pass. Season pass being very important for those that want to keep returning to this park, for the people that live locally. Nothing too exciting in this building, I would assume. It would just be, some desks, cameras to take your photo, and many computers and administrative stuff for the employees that work there. Pretty generic square rectangular building. Outside of that, we have the grand entrance. Took me a while to build, took me a while to kind of get the way I wanted it to, but ultimately the center area in the middle is all opened up to entrance and exit. So how my understanding would be, they have these like roll up mesh doors like they have at like your malls, your shops, that you can kind of open up as, if, in case they get a lot more people showing up, it's a little bit more crowded, they can open up more entrances or close off just to ensure, depending on how much staff they have, they're only funneling, a couple lines through. How this would work in my mind, you would enter in the middle here and to the right, and then you would have your people exiting out to the left. And depending on the time of day, they would open up more and have you exit a little bit more through thoroughfare, and depending on the time of day. So that's that. Over here we have guest relations. If you have a question or a comment or you need to complain about something before you get into the park, you would kind of walk up and queue here, talk to whoever is on the other side of this window, and they would do whatever they felt like they need to do. So, just trying to, again, playing with, different ways we're building things and stuff. We have like a little art shape to kind of look like, you can pass information back and forth, that kind of stuff. But I did not do custom roofs on this thing because I did not want to attempt that. I mostly was kind of focused on building the park out, kind of getting a good playing with the tools, figuring out what shapes we have. I'm still kind of figuring out what kind of tools and shapes that are actually available to be utilized. But I think this turned out pretty good. The one thing that I did do is I custom built this kind of spire thing up here. And what I didn't realize is I was building it with like light up objects. So let's see, can I turn off the sun? Let's see if you can see it. Yeah, so like these columns are actually like light up. So I just made it so it actually lights up, because I think which pieces are these? Yeah, Resort Lightbox 4. I probably should have read that. I was building these. They were the right color that I wanted, but little do I know that they actually light up and I can't turn them off. So I just made it so it's lit. So it kind of has some uplighting here to kind of light up the spire to make it look, kind of, I guess, menacing at this point. It looks a little bit more menacing than inviting, but that was pretty cool. Let me put the camera back to daytime. There we go. 10 o'clock's pretty fine. But yeah, so, heading into the park, we, you would have, your entrance queue here, the tables where they, kind of tell you to empty your pockets in case, you're like, open up your purse, open up your bags, make sure you're not bringing in any, nuclear weapons, firearms, that kind of stuff that, you find here in the United States parks. And then they have you throw out things that, aren't allowed, like outside food or beverage, your subsequent nuclear weapons or firearms, just throw them out before you get into the park. And then like a little bit of lost and found on the table for people that kind of dump stuff, but then got too excited to go in the park and they just start going. So moving into this section right here, we have kind of a, common gathering spot, I would like to think this is. So, for people coming in, for people leaving, this is the, hey, meet me here before we, leave or come or go, that kind of things. Kind of a larger restrooms up in the top there. Everyone's got to use the bathroom. And this is going to be kind of a high traffic area, so you want them to be a little bit larger to accommodate all the traffic. Outside of that, we have our first shop. So this is just a memento shop, as you can see. In my mind, what this is the array of park employees that are going to bother the crap out of you to take your picture as you are coming or going, and then try to sell you that photo as you leave, or that kind of stuff. So on this table right here, they have the cameras. You'll have kind of the video screens to kind of show you what your pictures look like, a few knickknacks to also sell you with your photo, and the general revenue stream. But yeah, so I thought that was a good spot for this, because we're a little bit too close to the entrance, in my opinion, right here to try and sell food. It's not going to be very lucrative to try and sell food here unless you're trying to catch people leaving, but I don't know. But yeah, so further in we have our actual first food drink shop, and this is something I'm going to do with the series moving forward. Is I'm going to have I would like you guys to start giving me recommendations for names. What do you feel like this food shop should sell, and what would you like to name it? So I guess if people want to leave comments on potential names, I'll probably do it building by building, episode by episode. So I'll probably put a building down. Unless I have a really good idea for a name, I'll probably leave it up to you guys to kind of figure out what you want to name things. But yeah, I feel like this is going to sell some sort of fried food because I put like a, the exhaust for like a range hood right here for, whatever fryers or flat top griddle we have in here. It's going to vent out the side. I guess, the way this is sitting, it's probably sitting in here. So, and then a little table here to kind of, extra large napkins. They would probably put, your condiments, your ketchup, your mustard, if there's hot dogs here, that kind of stuff. Forks, knives, et cetera, et cetera. And then a garbage to throw out your trash. And then just, some generic seating area. Again, kind of where this is sitting a bit closer to the entrance. We probably would expect people to be just grabbing and then continuing on into the park. So I would assume there would be more seating going inside of there. So not many people sitting here at this point in time. But outside of that, I do want to touch on the elevation changes. So like I said earlier, I really want to kind of play around with the elevation. So one of the things I thought was pretty cool and kind of the ideas that I have is the way this park's going to be set up. There's going to be stuff going on over here, stuff going on over here. And then there'll be, the way people to kind of cross here without going back to like the main center thoroughfare over here. So I think it'd be really cool, as you enter the park, you'll be able to see, I guess, of a teaser of, what is to come, and, people walking across the bridge here, and be able to see whatever's going on over here in the left or the right as you work your way into the park. I just thought it was pretty cool. It frames things really well. It kind of keeps this entrance a little bit separate. We'll have a welcome sign here that I need to center a little bit better. And then I'll probably put like a sign of like, thank you for coming on this side. Cause if you're crossing this threshold, you're most likely leaving the park at this point. And same thing, if you're crossing this threshold from this side, you're most likely coming into the park. So, but yeah, as we come further into the park, I'm not sure if I'm going to do some more buildings right here. But there's, this is going to be like a lot of shops area, but this is going to be kind of the center of focal point, I guess, disbursement of guests at this point. This is where it's all going to happen, right? So I'm thinking kind of like a grand-ish plaza here. And then, it'll probably swing this way, swing this way, swing that way, swing that way. This is going to be kind of like the center of the park. Or at least one of the kind of centers of the park, depending how big we're going to do this. I really don't know how big we're going to go with this park, but it's at least going to be like a moderately sized, amusement park. I'm thinking like a moderately sized, comparing to like a Six Flags, something like that. Nothing ginormous like Disney, nothing with a, unlimited money like a Disney, right? But also not as small as like a little fun fair. But over here, just kind of playing around with different building shapes and sizes. Not sure what this is going to be yet, but, as I said earlier, if you have ideas, feel free to drop some ideas down. I think we're going to have, more shops that kind of come along this way. There's going to be a lot of shops. There's a lot of money made in food sales, souvenir sales, and stuff like that. But outside of that, last thing I kind of want to touch on over here is, this little backstage area. And one of the things I did want to say is, like, I'm playing around with little decals, trying to kind of figure out, it's not a pristine park. We don't have unlimited money. It's kind of a northeastern United States, so we get a lot of weather here. Trying to play around with like dirt along the edges, and then same thing with like here, like this would probably be where like utility vehicles or golf carts are ripping in and out that the staff's driving. So I try to kind of emulate, like skid marks from high traffic areas. So, the amount of golf carts that went in and out of here with the rubber tires just kind of leaving marks on the ground. Just playing around with stuff like that to add a little bit more touch of realism. Outside of that, coming into here, again, a little bit backstage area. I feel like this building right here is going to be more of a, maybe like the security office, that kind of stuff, but also, general staff room, staff area. So, a little parking area for those golf carts, utility vehicles, or, smaller pickup trucks they may be using. And then, an entrance to the door into the building here, a little garbage. And then, I'm not really going to be playing around with the, oh my gosh, I left a opening here. Wow. Just ignore that. You did not see that. But, yeah, so I left, I'm not really doing anything with the utilities. I'm not going to play around with utilities. I'm playing on pure sandbox mode. I think the utility minigame is cool. It's just not something I really want to do with this series. So, but I did want to use the asset here because this building's going to need backup power in case, we do lose power in some sort of event. I figured this would be, a generator. Like this kind of fits the theme of a generator and some sort of electrical utilities for probably this building, and those two outbuildings up there. So, I think that would kind of cover it. So I really kind of wanted to place that there. And like I said, in general, parking vehicles there. Here's a little bit of oil spill. One of the trucks is probably leaking a little bit of oil. They need to kind of service it, but yeah. Like I said, more administrative, maybe security office, more staff area. I really kind of want to focus on the backstage stuff, especially by the entrance. This kind of gives the ability to the staff to, go in and out, work these buildings, get everything set before the park opens while you might have guests outside and you don't want the staff to be roaming around outside. You want them kind of be in their own backstage area. It's all about optics, right? But other than that, I think that's pretty much it for this. Yeah, so ultimately, like I said, security office, a little bit more administrative offices over here. This is guest services, restrooms, a little bit of HVAC for the restrooms, kind of, just in case it gets hot. But yeah, outside of that, I think this was a pretty good start. I think next we're just going to start kind of moving further into the park, and we'll see where we go from here. But other than, like I said earlier, please leave some comments and thoughts. I kind of want to build this park together with the community here. So if you guys have, suggestions of what you want to see next, absolutely let me know. Other than that, I'll see you guys in the next one.